Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is John Ferrante with NERCA. We're going to get started. We've given about 5 minutes for everyone to get on, so if anyone jumps on in the middle of it, they'll be able to catch up anyway. Today we have an interesting webinar for you, a little different than kind of the subjects we normally cover, but we have Todd Bairstow of Keyword Connect, which is an online marketing consulting company, and he's going to do his presentation, 5 Ways Mobile Technology Has Changed Online Marketing for Roofing Contractors. I think it's a really timely subject where, a lot of our contractors are just starting to really be aware of this kind of marketing and really take advantage of it. So hopefully everyone will take something away that can help them kind of get to the top of the pile on these web searches and things like that. If you have any questions, definitely type them in, and I'll be happy to spout them off to Todd. And other than that, I'll let Todd take it away. Thanks, Todd.
Great, John. Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody for taking some time out of their busy schedules to be here this afternoon. I am going to take you through some of the most recent changes that we've seen online, particularly when it comes to Google, Bing, Yahoo, and the search engines, as well as just general consumer behavior and homeowner behavior that we've seen here over the last several years, because there's been a pretty massive shift when it comes to mobile technology. A couple of years ago, it would have been, this is really 5 years ago, it would have been crazy to think that homeowners are willing to, look at their small screens on their cell phones and make some decisions that could cost them, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Who would do that on their phones? And boy, was I wrong. It turns out that there are a lot of them, as the technology has improved and homeowners have gotten to be more trusting of their devices, their iPhones and so forth. It turns out that they are making those decisions. And so this is important for the roofing community because the cell phones are going to be, and smartphones are going to be where homeowners continue to isolate who they're going to want to call for a residential roofing job, and B, really in the consideration phase, who are they going, after the consideration phase, I should say, who are they physically going to actually call or send a web form to, so they're learning and then they're acting all on their phones. So that's the real change that's happened over the past 5 years. Now I'll show you a little bit about how this is affecting everything moving forward here. So number one, and this is the real surprise here over the last couple of years, mobile phones are actually overtaking desktop and laptop computers when it comes to searches. So this is not just oh, it's iPads or tablets and phones. No, mobile phones are becoming even for the homeowner audience of 45+ homeowners who many roofers target. The mobile phone is surely overtaking the desktop and the laptop. So I'll show you a couple of statistics to that. There are now trillions of searches made globally on Google every year. So that's trillions with a T. It's a pretty staggering number. Search has become an ingrained habit in the homeowner audience. Even if it was a desktop, now it's everywhere. And millennials and the next generation of homeowners are taking search for granted. A lot of the millennials aren't even going to know what the yellow pages were. Now more than half of all web traffic and half of those searches are coming from smartphones and tablets. And this is now almost, it's 18 months old, so it's even more than that at this point. People are increasing the number of opportunities there are to access the web because they can carry their phone anywhere with them. I heard it put in good terms by somebody a couple of years ago, and they said, who would have thought that that we would all someday walk around with a device that has access to all the knowledge and the history of the world in their hands? And it turns out that's what smartphones and our cell phones are. The misconception here is that millennials are the only demographic online, and that, hey, these guys are the ones using their phones all day. They may not be the right target audience for my roofing services. When you actually look at the numbers, it's the other way around. eMarketer estimates that 87.5% of boomers will have a mobile phone this year. So boomers are the sweet spot for so many contractors. They have extra funds. They have older homes. And to see that such a big percentage online or on their phones is remarkable. If you go up a demographic, if you go up, let's say it's just seniors who are 65 plus, now you're at 80% of seniors have mobile phones. So it's 80%. And we should all just start living with the idea that these folks are not dumb technologically. They're actually more and more sophisticated because they're doing so much on their mobile phones. So that's the first big change that we've seen, is that your prime audience, with the audience with A, that owns homes, and B, has the capital to improve them, are spending more and more time on their mobile phones. Number two, and this is where we'll show you a little bit about some specific roofing examples. Google has embraced pay-per-click advertising on mobile phones and on desktop in a really significant way. And the reasons are obvious. This is how they make their money. If you wonder how much money Google is going to make this year, it's going to be $100 billion with a B, $100 billion this year. And over 90 billion of those dollars are going to come from pay-per-click. So that is their cash cow, and that is how they continue to drive revenue. When it comes to roofing specifically, I can share some numbers with you. With our roofing clients this year, 38% of the leads that we did from Google advertising came from mobile phones, and that's just web forms. That's not even phone calls directly. So that's of web forms and emails that we received. 38% came from mobile phones. The interesting part, I sometimes hear this from folks, is, well, Google is driving people to mobile, or Google wants more people on mobile. And I think it's the opposite, which is that Google doesn't lead users where they want them to go in a lot of cases. They go where their users go. And because users are increasingly on mobile, particularly for home improvement, Google wants you and I as marketer, and then you as contractor, to be there as well. So let me take you through some specific roofing examples here. This is a desktop page. We'll get to a mobile page in a little bit, but this is a desktop page from here in Massachusetts for roofing contractors, and this is a search result. And what you notice is that everything here in green is an advertisement. It's a pay-per-click ad. You can't get free stuff above the fold without scrolling almost ever now. Google is really good at making sure that the paid ads come up first, because that's how they make their money, and it's certainly the case for mobile as well, as I'll show you in a little bit. People are, and this will come as no galloping shock, inherently lazy. They don't want to scroll to find things. They typed in roofing contractor. They want to see roofing contractors. Well, here's 4 of them. They're literally right there at the top of the page. In a lot of cases, homeowners don't need to scroll, because Google is doing an excellent job of putting those ads at the top for homeowners to choose from right away. They aren't even scrolling. They're not clicking the mouse. They're not scrolling with their thumb. They're choosing something immediately. Why is this so important? And I'll show you this is called an old heat map. And the heat map shows you on a page where people click. And again, it's no shock they're clicking in the red, because those are at the top of the page before people scroll. Same thing, there used to be ads on the right side. There isn't anymore. But even when they did get clicked on, it was over at the top of the page. The further down you go, the fewer clicks you're going to get. So being at that top is really important. With a desktop roofing contractor page, there are a couple of things. There are 4 spots at the top, and these are given more space than they used to. So if you look down here at the third ad, these are what most ads used to look like. They were 3 lines. They were kind of flat. They weren't great. But you look at the ad at the top, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 7 lines. You have a phone number. You have, these are called extensions. You have an area extension up here. You have a little offer. Google's really made these ads much fuller. There's more text. There's more that you can add to them. And that's important because Google wants you to call and click on these ads. So getting these ads right is super important. One of the things I hear from roofers quite a bit is, I've got a website, I'm doing the organic work, and that's all I need to do. I'm going to focus there. It's certainly great to have a great organic or free strategy where people find your website, but there is a glass ceiling there to growing in that you're only going to be able to rise so far so fast in the rankings as you're trying to drive growth. So this is another way to drive volume. If you're not here, if you're not in these spots, your competitors definitely are, and so they are getting a crack at those homeowners as they're making a search, and your company won't be there if you're not actively advertising here. The same goes on a mobile roofing page, and so this is where so many people are making decisions here. And so we typed in roofing contractors, and a couple things you can see right away. Number one, again, it's only pay-per-click ads up at the top. But number two, you can call right away. You can click to call. You have an offer. You have other links down here for the second ad. So it's trying to get people to click when they're most likely to click, which is right at the top before they scroll down for everybody else. With mobile, your position matters a little more because the top 2 spots are the ones that are going to get the clicks. There are fewer options there. But we look at it as an opportunity to grab that homeowner when they're ready to make a decision or ready to raise their hand and say, yes, I'd like to talk with somebody about a free estimate. You can crowd out competitors and seize an opportunity there to try and drive volume. We've seen it work for a number of clients, but these pages are very specific and they need to be done properly in order to get your positioning up there. And last but not least, I always show this slide because I think it's a great one, which is internet consumption is the #1 source used to gather information. It's the time spent online is right up there with television. And so, an average person is spending 16 hours a week online, which is comparable to what people are spending on television. It's happened very fast. The internet is only, commercially 20 years old, a little over 20 years old. So the revolution has happened very, very quickly, and people are spending massive amounts of time on it. Okay. One of the third change is that responsive websites are now the standard for home improvement and roofing companies, and we'll get into what that is in a moment. One of the things that I see from a lot of home improvement companies, especially exterior ones, is, hey, I did my website 4 or 5 years ago. It looks great. I had great rankings, and it's going to be what carries me through for the next X number of years. The reality is that 5 years ago, people just weren't using their phones. And so it was not all that big of a deal to have a site that looked great and performed great on a desktop. Now it needs to look good on a tablet, on a desktop, on a mobile phone. And that is super, super important. And how do you do that? You do it through responsive websites. Why? And a couple of things here. While shopping for home improvement contractors, smartphone users use the smartphone too. Number one, locate a business, call a business, research prices, all things that are taking them much further down the sales funnel and further qualifying them for when they want to make a decision about who to call. They're going to call, one roofer, 2 roofer. They may call a number of them, but they're certainly doing their research on smartphones ahead of time. 67% of consumers are more likely to convert on a mobile optimized website or a responsive site. And so a bad experience online will get homeowners to click away. If the text is too small, I can't find what I'm looking for. You've all been on your mobile phones and seen what happens when you get frustrated. What do? I'm going to click somewhere else. I'm going to call somebody else. I'm going to enter a new search term. So being optimized for mobile is super important. 52% of consumers say they are less likely to engage with a company if their site is not mobile optimized. And so unconsciously or subconsciously, homeowners are making a decision about your company based on how good your website looks. Do they look like they're reputable? Are they up to date with how websites are supposed to look these days? It is one of the craziest things in the world that a roofer may have to deal with how good their website looks because people are making judgments about or drawing conclusions from that website about how good their roof is going to look. The homeowner draws a connection. It absolutely happens. And so the better your site looks, the better, the more likely you are to get that homeowner to pick up the phone and call you. And 61% of consumers will move to another site if they can't find what they're looking for quickly. And so this comes down, if you've had your website done in the last year or two, most likely the navigation is responsive and it's very easy to use. You don't want to frustrate people or put up obstacles or create friction where there doesn't need to be. Make it easy for people to do things, and they will use your site the way you want them to. The harder you make it to find phone numbers, to click to call, to submit a form, the harder you make those things, the more likely that homeowner is to go somewhere else and find another solution. So on top of just the straight homeowner behavior, Google has taken a very hard look at what to do with websites that aren't mobile friendly. And what you find is that there is a real penalty for websites that Google crawls and looks at, and it turns out they don't render properly on mobile phones. They will penalize that site, and you will lose traffic and lose visitors to a competitor who does have a responsive and mobile optimized site and who Google feels will give that user a better experience on their website. So this isn't just a matter of what the homeowner thinks, it's what Google thinks of your website, what Google thinks homeowners are going to do, because they have massive amounts of data that are certainly going to tell them about that. So what does a responsive website look like? And I'm going to pop this up here. Now this isn't a roofing example. I've got those coming here in a bit. But it is a responsive site. And what you see is a single website in 5 different sizes where everything looks well designed and looks cohesive. So you don't have to worry about having a separate mobile site and a separate desktop site, a separate tablet site, and a separate mobile phone site. You have one site that looks good in any configuration. And this is a good test for your web designers who may be redesigning for you. You want to make sure that you can do this test and everything is going to look great no matter the screen size. So I'll take you to some examples. And so desktop sites need to look great on mobile phones, and this is a typical desktop site that we do for some of the paid search work or the pay-per-click work that we do with our clients. And it has a lot of the elements that you need. You know, it's got the logo, it's got the company colors, but then it also has an offer for the free estimate. It has a phone number everywhere. It has a photo of a new roof that they've just finished up. So it has a lot of the elements that homeowners are looking for that make it very easy even on a desktop. But how does it look on a mobile phone? And here's how it looks over to the right-hand side of the screen, which is you have those same elements right at the top. So you have the logo, you have the colors, you have the phone number and the offer and some messaging and a photo. That's about all you can fit into a typical mobile screen. There's just not a ton of room there, so you have to get the key elements to the top of the page because that's what the homeowners want. Make it simple for me. Make it super easy for me to get engaged with you and then contact you and ultimately let you know that I'm interested. And this is something that we take a lot of pride in because, you know, we're a pay-for-performance company. When we don't generate leads, we don't get paid. So we need to make sure that when somebody comes to us on mobile, that they're going to have a great experience, that they're going to click to call, or they're going to put that form in because it's super important to everybody involved in the process. All right, point number 4, click to call is becoming more and more popular. And, you know, I think a lot of you have probably heard in the roofing community about click to call over the years where you just, you know, you have an ad out there and somebody clicks and they call you, and it's been a much bigger element in home improvement over the last couple of years. More so probably for service and repair calls, but we definitely see people are spending less time making decisions because in a lot of cases the technology has gotten better and the ads have gotten better. And so let me show you, this is the same screen snap that we'd seen before regarding responsive sites. This is the search that got them there. And what you find here that's interesting is that Google knows you're on a mobile phone. They know where you are because of the GPS tracking. And they know that you can call directly from that ad now. A homeowner doesn't even have to go to the website. They can read the ad, they can read the offer, they can have the phone number, all the elements for a good response are there. So the homeowner, in probably about 10% of the cases, isn't even going to bother going to your website. They're going to click that number and they're going to call and want to talk to somebody right away. And this click to call directly from ads is very, very important. It's certainly something that we do in all of our advertising and get that up there whenever we can, because you want to take steps out of that journey. You want to get to the contact as quickly as you can, and if that means I'm just going to take a call even though they haven't gone to the site, that's better than them going to the site and perhaps getting interrupted, going and searching somewhere else, their kids come and interrupt, and suddenly they've lost their momentum. So this is another momentum generator that Google is using to try and get people to respond when they're hottest and most ready to go. With regards to the mobile roofing page itself, you notice this is the same snap we had earlier about telephone numbers right at the top. And this way, again, the homeowner doesn't have to search. They don't have to write a number down. They can just touch the screen and dial you. And this is another area where you make it so easy for homeowners. You don't lose them when they've built up all this momentum. You don't want them to have to click the little navigation menu, see where the contact page is, then locate the phone number. All that takes a few seconds, but when you realize how short the attention spans are online, that few seconds can really detract from the response rates that you're getting. So very important to try and keep those all of this click to call as an option for everybody throughout your website. Okay, we're about to go to point number 5 here. And point number 5 is texting works. And I'm going to go through just a brief preamble to this before we get to the texting information. But when a typical homeowner goes online, this is what we've seen over the years. It's that homeowners will submit a form about 65% of the time, or they will call 35% of the time. Now, these are leads only. These aren't total numbers. These are just for qualified leads from homeowners who are going to sit for appointments. People like to fill out forms. For whatever reason, they become much more comfortable with it online than we ever thought they would, especially for mobile phones. So getting those forms is really important, but it's how you respond to them, in some cases by phone or by text, that's even more important. So what we've found is that web forms is the number one way to book appointments, as we just showed, but that calling back the web forms is a real pain point for a lot of roofing contractors, particularly reaching back to homeowners. They may not have the infrastructure, they may not have the call center to get back to people in minutes versus hours or even days. But the homeowner's attention span is so much faster than that. They call somebody, they want it instantaneously. They love to be contacted back in moments rather than hours. One way to get back to homeowners is to use texting to reach back for those folks that you can't reach by phone. It increases the contact rate on your web form leads. People are reading the average text messages. 90% of text messages are read within the first 3 minutes. Think about that for a second. How many phone calls have you ever made to a homeowner and they pick up and talk to you 90% of the time? It just doesn't happen. With texting, it certainly does. This improves all sorts of your downstream metrics. It improves the appointment set rate. It improves the cost per appointment. So if you have sales folks, their numbers are actually going to look better because you've been able to get in touch with more of them. And so this was I stepped on my own quote here. More than 90% of people read a text message within the first 3 minutes of receiving it. So if you think about it this way, if you have 100 leads that come in from whatever the source is, if you're able to get an extra 5 or 6 in touch with an extra 5 or 6 people because you texted them, that will result in an extra sale or even an extra 2 sales at the end of those 100 leads, and it really has a material effect on your top line, total revenue, as well as your net revenue at the bottom, and it makes all your other media expenses look more reasonable because you're able to increase the number of leads, appointments, and jobs that have come from all of those sources. So texting is super important. Here's the next one, and this reads, my voicemail message should say, you know good and well I'm not going to answer, so please hang up and text me. I don't do phone calls. This is much more specific to the kind of 40 and under generation right now, the next generation of homeowners that's coming up, where they would much rather get a text from you. They would much rather hear from you that way than necessarily from a voicemail or talking specifically, especially for things like, hey, are you going to be there for this appointment tomorrow? Much more likely to get a yes or a no via text than you are with a straight phone call. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do the phone calls, so please be very careful with that. We recommend phone calls and texting in combination with one another. But this helps you to drive down the percentage of people who no-show when you come to give them an estimate. And the folks who will increase the number who call you ahead of time or text you ahead of time, wait a minute, I need new time. It turns out I have a conflict. Then you can try and reschedule and not lose that homeowner or that appointment. So texting is another way that you can do this, another way that you can improve your numbers all the way through just by incorporating a new type of media of outreach that the homeowner already wants to use. They're already looking for text relationships, and if you can add that through some really typical CRM software packages like Market Sharp and Improve It 360. They both support text messages to help you confirm and so forth. So it's pretty simple to learn and figure out how to get text messages when you don't reach people the first 1 or 2 times. So that is the full 5. I'll just tell you briefly about Keyword Connects. We deliver exclusive home improvement sales leads. We work with dozens of roofing companies across the country. The leads are very high quality. Our leads will set into appointments 60 to 80% of the time. It's a pretty strong number. We've been serving hundreds of home improvement companies, a lot of exterior over the last 11 years. And because we're performance-based, that means that your success is our success. We know online marketing cold. If you ever wonder who the geeks are who sit around and figure out how Google works for the home improvement industry, it turns out I'm like the head geek, and I do this stuff all the time. So we drive leads, very, very profitable leads for a number of clients in the roofing space. We would love to talk to you some more if you think we can help you. That's me there. I've been trying to Photoshop myself to make me skinnier or better looking, but failing on both accounts. So that said, I'm going to turn it back over to John here in a moment and see if there are any questions from the crowd. Feel free to ask any questions about this presentation or about any online topic at all. I'll be happy to talk through what I know. So, okay, John, we're going to go back to you.
Thanks, Todd. That was an interesting presentation. I'll give people a second. If they have any questions, they can type them into the question box on the GoToWebinar application. I myself have a couple questions for you. NERCA, we just had a website redesign, or I guess it was last year, and have also taken on a Google AdWords campaign, and these are both done by amateurs, myself, not a professional like you. But I was kind of wondering about, is that sort of the process that you see for, say, a roofing contractor who doesn't have, might not have the greatest website or any website at all? Would you recommend that they, work with you or work with a web developer to come up with a good site and then mount online advertising campaign from there, or what's kind of the process that you see playing out?
Sure, it's a good question. So I'll start first with the business end of the question for your audience. And if you're a roofer, your website is really important because people are going to see your trucks around town. They're going to see your signs around town, and they're going to drive traffic to your website. People are going to type your name in and search right there. And if they don't have a good experience there, because the site's old or because the site hasn't been updated, that is going to, for a lot of folks, just disqualify you from earning their business. And they take, for whatever reason, the quality of the design and the quality of the experience translates to them somehow in ways that they may make a decision that, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not sure they look trustworthy. The opposite also happens, which is, what a great website. They have big pictures. They have some great testimonials. They have an active social media account. It looks great on my cell phone, or it looks great on my tablet. Those things do translate for the homeowner. When we do a campaign on the paid side, so we're doing pay-per-click ads or any type of campaign where we're paying for media, what we do is we build a mini site for our clients. And so we send everything to that mini site. It's very similar to the one we'd seen here. I'm going to back up here in the presentation to get to it. We build websites that are going to look good on everything. And so these are the types of sites we build just to make sure that, hey, they look good everywhere. We're featuring the right products. We do it all for our clients. There's no fee for any of this. This is all part of our pay-for-performance program. So if your website doesn't look good, you don't need it to work with our program. We will do this on behalf of everybody we work with.
Oh, great. That's really interesting. A question that came in with cell phones, does that improve the chances of targeting someone based on their location?
It's a good question. And so to target accurately, targeting a cell phone accurately from a geo-targeting standpoint is much more accurate than targeting somebody from a landline. It's odd, but the cell phones these days all have GPS, so Google and the search engines know exactly where they are, down to like the square foot where they are, or where the phone is, 99% of the time. When it comes to desktops or tablet, more desktops than they're still about 75 to 80% accurate, but not completely accurate. So there are folks out there, and we do it a little bit for some of our clients, who we find hey, it's just easier to target and easier to convert mobile traffic than it is desktop traffic, so we focus there. I don't recommend that for roofing companies yet, but it is a tack that folks are taking out there, just targeting the mobile phone crowd.
Yeah. Oh, and then a comment that came in, I guess more of a comment, is just saying that it's the thing about the texting, your insight about the texting, because, making reservations now, you get text when you make a reservation for a restaurant. It makes sense to do it.
It's funny, John, you say that. I was having a conversation with a guy who worked for Angie's List a couple of years ago, and he just moved to Boston, where we are. And he said, when I was looking for a barber or a place to get my hair cut, he said, I didn't bother with all the places I found. I ended up going to the one where I could make an appointment online via his phone, rather than to any of the others, because he could just type in the time he wanted to go and show up and get a haircut. There was no waiting. There was no, this chair will open up. And so a lot of the next generation of homeowners is going to think that way, particularly about scheduling an estimate or scheduling to have somebody come in. They're going to want to, hey, I'm going to be available at my house from 3 to 5 on Friday afternoon. Can you come then, rather than you trying to fit them in during the day or during the gaps in your schedule. So it's a definite change amongst the millennial homeowners to start to think that way.
I can vouch for that as a millennial homeowner. I can vouch.
There you go.
That's interesting. So with the texting, would that be like an automated text service? Is that what you're kind of pointing at, or would it just be someone behind the scenes shooting off a quick text?
I would automate it if you possibly can, and there are services out there. Improver 360 and Market Sharp are two that they're CRM platforms that can, if you use them, you can use them to book and schedule appointments. You can use them to automate the emails that you send out to people, and you automate text messages the same way you would automate the email messages that you send out. And so you had to learn to do email at some point. This is just another phase just like that, where you're learning to automate the text. But once it's up and running, you never have to worry about it again. It's not like you have to dial somebody every time out. It just happens automatically at the CRM level, and that's what I would recommend.
Cool. Yeah. Very interesting thought. Definitely not something I'd considered for roofing contracts.
It gets you into the house, and it makes sure people show up. So it's those should be two winners, and it's so cheap. It's so inexpensive. It's much less expensive than going out and getting another lead. So if you can grab a few extra leads out of 100 just that way, it'll start to help all your numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it doesn't seem like there's any other questions, but I'm sure Todd and Herds are raring to go to hear from you guys if anyone is interested in talking with them about their services. So hopefully that someone makes that connection and finds success with it.
Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate the time, and give me a call anytime you have questions about anything online. I'll be happy to talk with you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Todd.
Have a good afternoon, everybody.
You too. Bye.
Take care.